The Congress of Trade Unions and Staff Associations of Barbados takes strong objection to the intention of the government of Barbados to introduce legislation that would give or grant members of the Barbados Defense Force the powers of arrest. It is known that to facilitate this intention, the government has resorted to amending the Police Act. The basis of the amendment is said to be part of a larger effort to reform the police force and enhance public order and safety. The amendment is intended to grant members of the BDF powers when deployed to assist the police service in maintaining public order and safety. The vagueness of this and the conditions which will apply to give effect to the execution of the powers of arrest by members of the BDF have not been identified. With this being the case, concerns can be raised about the possibility of arbitrary arrests being made, the abuse of the power and authority on the part of members of the BDF. The powers of arrest being granted to members of the BDF within the civil society space is considered as a dangerous precedent. It cannot be ignored that under the Police Act, the maintaining of law and order is the sole preserve of the Barbados Police Service. This is recognized within the proposed amendment of the Police Act 167 at Section 23(2) under the caption Additional Duties and Powers of the Service in relation to maintenance of public order. That amendment reads, and I quote, every member of the service is hereby required to dispense all mobs in public spaces, and any member of the service may arrest without a warrant any person being in such mobs who refuses to disperse on being required to do so, end of quote. Now that the power has given to the police or proposed on the act. The public ought to be aware that Section 81 of the Defense Act, Cap 159, on the head of powers of arrest, states, and I quote, the BDF is responsible for defense of Barbados and any such duties that the Defense Board determines, in the court. This would suggest that the powers of arrest of the BDF are only permitted where there is a national emergency that is declared. Other than in this instance of a declared national emergency, there is clearly no provision for the engagement of members of the Barbados Defense Force. This apart, it is interesting that Section 24 of the Police Act, Cap 167, there is the proposed insertion of a Section 3, which reads, and I quote, notwithstanding subsection 2A, B, and D, and E, the Commissioner may enlist a person, and I repeat, a person into the service who possesses such special skills which are required by the service to enhance its operations, end of quote. In this section, it clearly is clear that nothing speaks to the inclusion of the BDF, any collective group. Barbadians may have every reason to be worried over to the amendment made to the proposed amendments to 79A of the Police Act, Cap 167. This amendment reads, and I quote, a member of the Defense Force who is deployed to the police service pursuant to the directions given under Section 9(2) of the Defense Act, Cap 159, for the purpose of maintaining and securing public order and public safety, shall be granted the powers, authorities, privileges, responsibilities, and immunities of a member of the police service under Section 19, and shall perform the duties thereof for the period specified in the directions, end of quote. CTUSAB cautions against the deployment of the military to undertake policing duties in a civilian state, except during national emergencies or crises. Other than that, the military should not be given the same powers of the police, nor should they replace or usurp the functions of civilian police. With the granting of immunities to the military, this raises serious questions of accountability and opens the door for transgressions such as human rights violations and the placing of civilians under arbitrary arrests. For the public's information, an arbitrary arrest is the deprivation of a person's liberty without proper legal justification, failing to adhere to due process or international human rights standards. In an arbitrary arrest, it is distinctly possible that the grounds for the arrest are legal, as the victim is not informed of the reasons for the arrest, or that their procedural rights are not respected. Barbadians ought to guard against the experiences of illegal detention by the military, as is known to have happened in many other international jurisdictions. It is generally accepted that law enforcement is not a task usually undertaken by military forces within the state, as this can present several challenges, such as potential conflicts with established police procedures.
Hey, listen up, listen up. Listen up. National Trade Union Center, working for the good of all. National Trade Union Center, don't worry, you know we got control. We working with CTUSAB, working together for the